Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to this month's DevOps Playground. If you have been with us last month, don't worry, it won't be me again. We'll have Jillian today telling us how to integrate your services on AWS. But before we start, a few words about DevOps Playground. We are running monthly meetups to share our knowledge, to introduce you to some DevOps tools, and to explore some new technologies or practices in the DevOps sphere. We're trying to keep our workshops in the hands-on format. We believe in learning by doing, so we always provide you with some sort of a lab environment, some sort of a playground you can experiment with. And that goes for today as well. We'll provide everyone with AWS access. That will be announced shortly. We used to meet in our London and Edinburgh offices, thanks to the ECS, which agreed to put some budget on our pizzas and host everyone in the office. Hopefully, we'll come back to that soon. Well, since our ward changed a little, we running our meetups online using YouTube. So, stay tuned for any events where we can actually see each other and talk and eat some pizza together. But today, Jillian, who will run today's workshops. So thanks a lot for joining again, and I hope you enjoyed today's session.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Just give me one moment, just setting up. All right. Hi, everyone. Just give me one moment, just setting up. One moment, setting up. One moment, setting up. Okay. All right. Shall we get started? Okay. All right. Shall we get started? Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jillian. Today, Today I'm going to be giving you a presentation on AWS Lambdas, S3, DynamoDB, and Python Boto3. Okay, so today during this playground, we are going to be setting up an AWS Lambda to interact with S3, DynamoDB, and CloudWatch. We're going to set up a trigger on S3 invoking the Lambda to take a CSV file or a comma-separated value file and parse it to DynamoDB. We're also going to configure permissions to allow the services to interact, and we're going to utilize AWS CloudWatch. So what does this look like? I'm hearing an echo as well, so if you guys are hearing an echo, I am also. Let's see. Oops, sorry about that, a little technical difficulty. Okay. All right, so what does this look like? At a high level, the CSV file or the comma-separated value is being uploaded to the S3 bucket. The Lambda function has the code that connects the AWS services, and the file is then parsed and put into DynamoDB. So we're going to look at the same diagram, but just with a little bit more detail. Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is the user is going to upload a file to our S3 bucket. And that's going to set off a trigger onto our Lambda. The trigger tells Lambda to take this file and parse it to DynamoDB. But in order to do this, our Lambda function has to have permissions that we set in the IAM role, which will be something that we're also doing today. And the Lambda function is written in Boto3, which is the Python software development kit, or the Python SDK. Boto3 allows communication between AWS services. So I mentioned CloudWatch as well, but we are going to talk about that a little bit more later. So before we get started on the lab, what are all of these parts? What is an S3 bucket or a Lambda? Why do we care? Let's start with an S3 bucket. So S3, or Simple Storage Service, is an AWS service that holds objects. It's best for unstructured data like CSV files. So we put objects in buckets. So we will be creating buckets today, and that's where we will upload our CSV file to. It's important to note that the region in which you create the bucket. A lot of AWS services depend on region, so I'll be bringing up region a lot, a few times throughout this playground, because if you're setting things up in different regions, you might not see the things that you're creating. So I'll bring that up a few times. So that's S3. Let's talk about DynamoDB. DynamoDB is a NoSQL, NoSQL database. But before we go into DynamoDB, let's briefly review what NoSQL or NoSQL database is if you're not familiar with it. So NoSQL, it goes by a few names, is a non-relational database. There are databases that store data in a format other than relational tables. In NoSQL or NoSQL, your data can be stored a few different ways, but specifically for DynamoDB, they will be stored as key values. I won't get into too much detail about non-SQL, but that's pretty much what you need to know as far as DynamoDB. So your data can be stored as JSON document, key value pairs, tables with rows or columns, but for DynamoDB, it is a NoSQL database. So DynamoDB stores items in tables, which can either be in a particular region or it can be global. We will be creating a Dynamo table, which the CSV file will eventually get parsed to. Okay. Sorry about that. I think we're having a little bit of a technical issue. Let's just been aware that we can't see the screen. Okay. Oh, there we are. All right. Great. Can we see the screen? Gotcha. Okay. Oh, I see. I see. Okay. All right. I don't know. Should I start over? No, I turned that off. Okay. All right. I'm gonna. I thought my screen was sharing. Okay, I won't go through the whole spiel again, but I will show you the slides just so you can see it. Because, you know, I made some pretty good. I like the little diagrams that I made, and I want everyone to see it. All right. We'll start over. I'm Jillian. I won't go into the nitty-gritty again, but these are the diagrams that you missed if it wasn't streaming before. I'll just do these two real quick. So this is what we're doing today at a high level. We are taking our CSV file or our comma separated value. It is being uploaded into an S3 bucket. The Lambda function has code that connects the AWS services, and then it's parsed into DynamoDB. Okay. In more detail, the user, or us in this case, we are going to be uploading a CSV file. This will set off a trigger. So we're going to set up a trigger so that the trigger tells the Lambda function to take the file that we upload, in this case, a CSV file. And this Lambda function is going to have permissions that we're going to set in the IAM role. Roles are something else that we are also going to be working on today. The Lambda function is written in Boto3. This allows the Lambda service, Lambda, to talk to the services. And I mentioned CloudWatch earlier. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, great. We talked about simple storage, S3. We already spoke about DynamoDB and how it's a NoSQL database. You know, it never hurts to hear a lot of this information more than once. So there you go. Now you know a lot more about what we're doing today. S3 buckets, DynamoDB. Great, we were going to talk about Lambda, and this is an exciting start to Lambda because Lambda is pretty cool. So this is the star of the show. Lambda is a serverless event-driven compute service. That is a mouthful, so before I go on, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what serverless means. So serverless means that all the back-end infrastructure is taken care of that is needed to run your code. You don't need to manage servers. There's nothing that you have to do. You only get charged based on usage. And like I said previously, it is event-driven. And so it only runs when it's triggered. And that's what makes Lambdas pretty cool. And that's why we're working with Lambdas today. So you're not wasting any costs by having an EC2 instance running in the background. It only runs and charges you when it's used. So like I said, Lambdas only run when it's triggered. The trigger that we're running today, or that we're going to be setting up today, is going to be us uploading an object. Our object in this case is the CSV file. So our trigger is going to be set up by uploading an object to our S3 bucket. When we upload the file, Lambda goes, okay, cool, let's get to work. Let's wake up, let's go. In this case, getting to work means parsing the CSV file into the DynamoDB. So let's talk about Boto3. Two more slides, and then it's lab time, and hopefully no more technical difficulties. Okay, so I spoke about Boto3. It is the software development kit for Python. It's the SDK for Python. Basically, Boto3 is the package that helps AWS services communicate with each other. When writing code for Lambda, if you're using Python runtime, then Boto3 is what you're going to use. In this lab, we'll be calling on clients, which is just fancy talk for AWS services. We will call a client with Boto3. We will configure, manage our S3 buckets and our DynamoDB table. All the code is written for you today, so no one is writing any code today. We're just going to be copying and pasting, but we'll also be going through the code, and I'll point out some important parts. And I mentioned CloudWatch a few times. I'm just going to wait for that slide to load up. So finally, we will utilize CloudWatch. CloudWatch monitors your AWS resources and applications you run on AWS in real time. You can use CloudWatch to collect and track metrics, which are variables you can measure for your resources and applications. You can do a lot of really cool things with CloudWatch. You can create alarms that watch metrics, and you can send notifications or automatically make changes to the resources you are monitoring when a threshold is breached. You can do something like check that bucket every day at 5 p.m. We're not going to be doing anything like that for today, but it is cool to know what's possible with CloudWatch. When we create our IAM roles, we are also going to be giving permission to CloudWatch as well. So we have to add in permissions for CloudWatch. Okay, that's it for the presentation. Let's get to work. So I'm going to switch on over to this screen. So right now, everyone should have open a browser. And on one tab, you should have the DevOps Playground like kind of landing page. On the other, you should have the GitHub. And before we get started, there are two CSV files in this GitHub. So we have our playground, playground-marvel.csv. Yes, it is Marvel movie related. I am a big Marvel fan. And we have this playground-tests.csv. So go ahead, download both of those to your desktop. Again, the CSV file is what is going to be triggering the Lambda. So we do need those files. And I suggest you kind of, side-by-side screen, have one window here and then another window, like kind of split your screen with the YouTube channel on the other side. Yeah, so go ahead, type in your Meetup username. When you submit that, you are going to get a little URL here. You can go ahead, copy, paste that right into the browser. And you can use your password. Don't use my password, use your own password. And your username. All of our usernames will look very similar. Today, I'm a silly panda. So we'll sign in. Oh, cool. Let's try this again. Let's see. Hopefully, people have signed in already. Wonderful, wonderful. Having signing in issues. Let's see what we can do. No. Oh, where do I find this? To the people who can hear me, there are extra voices in my head that are talking to me and guiding me. I'm not talking to myself. Although that's not completely out of the realm of something that I would do. Ah, gotcha. Thank you. Thank you, voice in my head. Okay, well, this is just going to take its sweet old time to load up. In the meantime, please make sure that you have downloaded your Marvel playground-marvel.csv and your playground-test.csv. You will need that. So like I said, I recommend having two browsers open. On one side, have the YouTube channel open, and then on the other side, have your AWS console. We're actually going to be opening up a few tabs. Oh, perfect. As we go through the code, there are snippets of code in here. There are actually 3 versions of code. They're in the README, so as you scroll along, if you get lost at any point, there are steps here, the exact steps that I'm going to be doing. So hopefully you won't get lost, but these steps do exist just in case you need them. And if and the code is available in the README. The code is also available up here in different versions, so version 1, version 2, version 3. And all right, let's get started. Okay. All right. So we don't have to do these in any particular order, but we're going to start with our S3 bucket because that's the first thing that we talked about. So just give me one moment. My apologies. I'm just getting set up over here. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our S3 bucket. I'm going to get rid of this just because I hate having tabs open. Let's start off by creating our S3 bucket. So sure. Okay. Wonderful. All right. We're going to get back into it, team. Okay. So we're going to create the S3 bucket. My internet has slowed down significantly. All right. So ignore the things that you see here. We're going to start off by navigating to S3. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click the big orange button over here that says Create Bucket. And like I mentioned before, S3 is global. So as you can see here, so this little drop down here, S3 does not require a region. However, when we make our bucket, we are going to include a region, and that's just going to help all the products, all the AWS services connect with each other. So the naming convention that we are all going to use today is going to be playground dash our service. So in this case, it's S3. and the type of panda you are. I am a silly panda. Again, we are going to be doing everything today in EU West 2. So make sure that we are in EU West 2. I'm going to be reminding you of that often. We can block all public access, that's fine. We can leave this. And we're going to add some tags. Tags are really important because when you're creating services and you're on a team, a bunch of people are adding a bunch of different things all at the same time, you want to be able to find your stuff really quickly. It's good practice, and some teams actually require it. So we're going to put in a key. We'll use our key as name. We'll put value. I'm going to put Jillian, but use your own name. And we'll put another tag. Our purpose is playground. What is our purpose? It's playground. So we're going to be adding tags every single time that we create something today. Default encryption is fine. Nothing in advanced settings. And we are going to create our bucket. We have created our first AWS service, guys. So I'm going to let that load. All right. So as you see here at the top, we have successfully created the bucket. Mine is called Playground S3 Silly Panda. Yours will be called Playground S3 Adjective Panda. And when you click on the panda, and the silly panda, as you can see, there's nothing in it because we haven't uploaded anything yet. So we're going to do that in a little bit. Now we are going to create our IAM role for Lambda. And so we can go down to services and you can search for it up here. I have it over here on the side, and let's actually open that up in a new tab because we're going to kind of be clicking back and forth. So I'm going to open up IAM in a new tab. Again, if you don't have it in your recently visited, which you won't, you can go ahead and type it up here. It will come up. But I have opened my IAM roles in a new tab. So I'm just going to wait for that to load up. Wonderful. OK, so we've navigated to the IAM. It is global. So let's go over to roles on the left-hand side. And we're going to create a role. And remember, we're creating a role to add permissions, and the permissions are going to allow the AWS services to talk to each other. So we're going to go ahead and click on Create Role. We're going to, under Choose the Use Case, we're going to click on Lambda. And down here on the bottom, we're going to click on Permissions. So in the search bar here, we actually have already made some permissions for you. So if you type in Playground, the 3 permissions that we need today are Playground CloudWatch, Playground DynamoDB, and Playground S3. I don't know what this May one is, but just these 3, CloudWatch, DynamoDB, and S3. And these are the permissions that we are adding to our role. So the next thing we're going to do is down here, we're going to click Tags. Again, add your own tag. It's good practice. My name is Jillian. My purpose right now is this playground. And we're going to review it. So let's go ahead and review. And we are going to add our role name. So we're going to follow the same role, the same naming convention that we've used. So playground, role, adjective, panda. Our role description is already here for us. And just double check that your policies are all connected right here. They are. So I'm going to go ahead and create this role. OK, perfect. So let's do a quick recap before we move on. We made sure all 3 policies are there. And so far, we have created an S3 bucket, and we've created the roles. Now what we'll do is we'll create the first version of our Lambda function that we will be working with. So let's navigate to Lambda. And again, we're going to open this in a new tab. So if you click on Services up here at the top, you can search for Lambda up here in the search bar, or It's under compute, actually. And let's open Lambda in a new tab. And so one thing I want to point out while this loads is up here on the upper right, you'll see that this no longer says global like it did in S3 and IAM roles. I can even show you really quickly because I have everything tabbed. For IAM roles, it says global. For S3 buckets, it also says global. But for Lambda, it says London. That's where I am right now, despite my accent. And we want to make sure that we are always in the same region. So when we made the S3 bucket, we did connect it to EU West 2. So we're going to stay in EU West 2 for the entirety of this lab. So let's create a Lambda function. It's the name of the game. So we're going to create our Lambda function. We're going to author this from scratch. We are going to add our function name. Again, it is playground, Lambda, the type of panda you are. Maybe you're a fast panda. And then we're going to make our runtime Python 3.8, the latest. And so let's add permissions. We already created a role, which is pretty cool. And now we're going to combine it. So click on Use an Existing Role. And if you type in playground, or if you type in panda or role, or any version of that really, you will find the role that you made. So playground, role, silly panda. And let's create that function. So we've now attached all the roles and the permissions that we've made to this Lambda. So I'm just going to wait for that to load up. Oh, still creating. Oh, I have a little bit of a network error. Let's try this again. Okay, so while this loads, I'll talk about the next thing that we're going to do. And the next thing that we're going to do is add our trigger. So again, the trigger is what is going to, our trigger is going to be us uploading a CSV file to our Lambda. So we want to create that trigger inside the Lambda function so that when we do upload a CSV file, the Lambda will recognize that and then it will trigger. I am having network issues. Let's try creating that again. Let's see. Is it my internet? Ah, okay. I guess if a bunch of us are creating functions all at the same time, AWS is like that. Okay, mine is created. It says up here at the top in the beautiful green box or rectangle, successfully created the function playground lambda silly panda. So let's add our trigger. So it's very simple. It says add trigger. So we're going to click on add trigger. And we know that our trigger is the S3. So we're going to search for S3. I'm going to just type that in here. Ugh. And we have already created an S3 bucket. So let's look for our S3 bucket. Mine is Playground S3 Silly Panda. Event type, we can keep that as all. Prefix is optional, we don't need to put it. Suffix is optional too, but we are specifically creating .csv files. So let's put that in. So .csv in our suffix, we're only using .csv files. Let's click this box here, and we're going to add our trigger. So just click this add button down here on the bottom. All right. As you can see here, the trigger is successfully added to our function. So now we're going to get our hands dirty with some code. But before we do that, if you look down on the trigger, you can see here that it says S3. And if you just click details, you can see the details that we added. So we did add our S3 bucket. We did add the suffix is .csv. So it's just a little bit more information for you. OK, so now let's go on over to GitHub. And if you scroll down, you'll see version 1 of the code. Again, it's in the README. It is also up at the top in version 1. But I'm just going to use the one that's in the README. And we're on step 4. So connect the Lambda function to the S3 bucket, and we're going to mock and upload. I'll get into what that means in a moment. So I'm going to copy this code. So there's a little clipboard here on the upper right. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to go back over to my Lambda. Over here, there is a tab, like kind of in the middle of the page, there's a tab called Code. So I'm going to click on that. Scroll down a little bit. And there's a function here on the left side that says lambda function.py. So there's a little bit of pre-populated code. We're going to get rid of that, and we're going to paste over the code that I made. And before we continue with this, let's just do a little bit of a recap. So we have set up an S3 bucket, our roles and permissions, the Lambda. We just put some code in there. We connected the role to the Lambda, and so now our Lambda can connect to the other AWS services. We just added S3 as a trigger. It's up here on the left. And now we have added the code, and this code is going to be the code that reads the CSV file from the S3 bucket. So this code here is written in Python using Boto3. So hopefully you have copied the code into here already. We're going to be going through a few versions of the same code, each version building on top of the previous one. So this block of code specifically is just going to be for reading the CSV files. So I'm going to go through the code. So up here at the top on lines 1, 2, and 3, we're importing JSON, CSV, and Boto3. We're using CSV and Boto3. That's why we need that. And again, Boto3 is the SDK that allows Python code to create, configure, and manage AWS services. Most of our code is going to be inside of this Lambda handler. Line 6, we're specifying the region. So EUS2, like I said, we want to make sure we're always in the same region. This line over here, line 7, we're actually going to be using that a little bit later. So I'll talk about that later. We have our logic wrapped in a try statement to catch exceptions. So if anything goes wrong, we'll get these error message. Line 10 is very important. So what line 10 does over here is it initializes our S3 client that we're going to use to read the CSV files in the S3 bucket. So Boto3 knows how to talk to AWS. So remember that our Lambda is triggered by an S3 event, an S3 trigger. So that event is from here. This is the parameter, the event parameter. And we use this event parameter to get the name of the bucket and to get the name of the CSV file, which is called a key, that will be put into the bucket. So lines 11 and 12 is how we do this. So as you can see, we have this variable bucket, and it's equal to the event and there's some elements here. I'll talk about that in a bit. And then we have the key. The key is actually going to be our CSV file. The bucket is going to be the name of our bucket. And I've added a print statement so that we can check if this code works. I always use code statements, little tip, to make sure that your code is working. So when we look in the output, or when we test it, or when we use CloudWatch, if your code works, then we will see the name of our bucket and the name of our CSV file. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do something called, we're going to mock the trigger, or we're going to mock the upload. So let's deploy the code. And deploy in this case just means save. So just save the code. And whenever you're coding, you want to test it, right? And our code here knows that when we upload a CSV file into an S3 bucket, that is the trigger. However, uploading and deleting the same CSV file over and over again can get cumbersome. So what we're going to do instead is we can actually mock the uploading of an object into our S3 bucket. So that's what we're going to do now. So as soon as this deploys, we're going to try that again. As soon as this deploys, I'm going to show you how we can mock an upload or mock a trigger. My network connection is struggling right now. Oh, great. OK, so got a little pop-up there. My notification, my code has been deployed. So let's click on test. And there's a little drop-down that says configure test event. So I'm going to click on that. And if you go down to event template, type in S3. And since we are putting something into our S3 bucket, we are going to click on Amazon S3 put. So you remember from that code that we were just looking at, the event called on S3, and it also called on object. The S3 part that we care about is the name of the bucket. In this case, it's example bucket, so this is just pre-populated code. And the object that we care about is the key, and the key in this case is going to be our S3 bucket. So let's give this this name. I'm going to call this Playground CSV test. Everyone can do the same thing, so you can call it the same thing, Playground CSV test, just like in the repo. Go down here, click create. And the test event was successfully saved. Perfect. OK, so we're going to scroll down just a little bit. And we're going to test our code and see if it works. And if it works, we should see this print statement and the bucket and the key name. So let's go ahead and click test. As you can see, a new tab opened up called execution results. So this is where all of our results are going to live. Awesome. Great. So let's take a look through this. Our response came out. That's the response that we wanted to see. It says success, so that's good. And as you can see, it did print out the bucket, which was example bucket, and the key, which was test key. So what does this tell us? What does this test tell us? Well, we uploaded a file to our S3 bucket. We didn't actually upload a file to our S3 bucket. We just pretended that we did. And Lambda actually can't tell the difference. And our code seems pretty happy with it. So now let's actually upload an object to our S3 bucket. And if this works, we should be able to see our results in CloudWatch. So we'll finally we will be getting to CloudWatch. So sorry about that. Great, so let's go ahead and navigate back to S3. You can search for your bucket if you're not already there. And we're going to upload the playground test.csv. So we're not going to upload the other one, just the playground test.csv. I have it here on my desktop, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag that in. You can do that manually as well, but dragging I find easier. So I'm going to click that one. Again, it's the playground-test.csv. That's the one that we want to upload. And I want to upload it. Okay, I guess I do have to do it manually. Huh. All right, I don't have to do anything else, really. Why is my upload button not working? Let's try refreshing this. Uh-oh. Let's reload this. All right, that seems to have done it. Okay, it went away. We're going to do this again. So playground-test.csv. I'm going to drag that over, and there's the button. It has highlighted. Now it works. Beautiful. So we're going to go ahead and upload that. It's calculating how long it's going to take. Usually it's pretty quickly, but I guess if we're all doing this at the same time, it might take a little bit more time. Because we want to make sure that this is triggering our Lambda. The next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to check this in CloudWatch. So we're finally going to be getting to CloudWatch. So as soon as this uploads, we are going to navigate over to CloudWatch. Okay, my upload failed. Let's see what that was. Oh, it's a network error. It's all right. Let's try that again. Oh, lovely. Let's see. It's the little spinning wheel of death, as I call this. It's taking its sweet time. Let's go back a step. Let's see if we go back, if that works. Okay. We're going to try this again. So I'm going to find my bucket, playground, S3, silly, panda. I see some pink pandas, some sweet pandas. Very nice. My bucket is still empty, so let's go to playground-test.csv, and we're going to upload that again. Hopefully, third, fourth, fifth time is the charm. You know what? we're up to at this point. Okay, fingers crossed that this works. Okay, the upload was successful. Hopefully everyone had a much easier time of that. So now we're finally going to use CloudWatch. So you can go here. Oh, no, not that. You can click on services. You can look for CloudWatch. You can type it in up here. Please open that in a new tab. So I'm going to open up CloudWatch in a new tab. And wait for that to load up. And what we're going to do in CloudWatch is just make sure that our S3 bucket works. Sorry, that our S3 bucket was read by our Lambda code by Boto3. So CloudWatch is slowly but surely coming together. On the side here, on the left-hand side, we have log groups. So let's click on log groups. This is what we're going to be using today. As you can see here on the left, you can do a lot of things with CloudWatch. Today, we're keeping it simple. We're just going to make sure that the things that we upload are being read. But you can set metrics, a whole bunch of things. All right. So I'm going to go to my Playground Lambda, which is Playground Lambda, Playground Lambda Silly Panda. Go to the one that you're using. And if you look on the log stream, this is the latest thing that just happened. So you can even check the time. This matches 8:54. 1854. So if I click on that, it's going to load the events. It's going to hopefully show that our CSV file was properly uploaded. Now, the two things that we want to look for are the name of the bucket, or the name of our bucket, and the name of the CSV file. Because if you remember from our Lambda code, that is the two things that our code is looking for. Our code is looking for the bucket and for our key. We did upload a CSV file to our S3 bucket, so the logs should be here in our CloudWatch. So we're just going to wait for that to load up, and hopefully that will show us that we did this correctly, and we did. So if we look at the timestamp, I know this is there's a lot to look at, but there's a start, and then the second one here is our output. And as you can see, this is exactly what we wanted to see in our print statement. Our print statement said print the name of the bucket, and it also said to print the name of the CSV file. And so our tests work. So we are in a good place. So let's do a quick recap. We set up the S3 bucket, we set up our role and the Lambda. The services are connected, and we set up S3 as a trigger. We put some code written in Python using Boto3 and tested to make sure we are all connected, and we are. We then mock uploaded and tested our code, and we used CloudWatch to check out the logs. So now let's go to version 2 of our code so that our code actually reads through the CSV file, and we can get a little bit more out of it. So if we go back to GitHub, so I'm on the GitHub tab now, and I'm going to scroll down to version 2. So you can see it's a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and copy that. I'm going to click this little copy clipboard at the upper right. Let's navigate back to Lambda. We're going to go to lambda function.py, and we're just going to replace all of this code. We're going to replace all of this version 1 code with this version 2 code. So just copy that right in there. And in order to save it, we need to click this button that says deploy. Okay. Oh, I have an error. Changes not deployed, but I want them to deploy. We're going to click deploy again, and hopefully this works. Okay, so while that loads, we're actually going to mock and upload again. So we have put in our S3 bucket. And if we did want to test the code, like I said before, instead of always uploading and deleting the objects inside of our S3 bucket, we can just test straight in the console. So once this deploy works, we're going to go back to our test that we created earlier. And we're just going to configure a few things in there so that we can test straight in the console. So as soon as that deploys, we will do that. Okay, third time's a charm. Changes have been deployed. So if we click on the test button and click on the little arrow, we're going to configure the test that we just made. So we know the last test worked because the output was example bucket and the test key. But now we have an object in our S3 bucket, and we know what the object is, and we know the name of our bucket. So right here on line 23, where it says example bucket, we're going to replace that with the name of our bucket. So playground-s3-silly panda, put in, obviously, the type of panda that you are. And make sure that it's exact. If you want to just copy and paste it straight from S3, that is something that you can do as well. You can go to your bucket, and you can just copy it and paste it. And the other thing that we want to edit, so we edited line 23, and we also want to edit line 30. And so line 30 is going to be looking for the S3 file. Sorry, not the S3 file, the CSV file. And the CSV file is called playground-test.csv. So again, this is just a mock. This is a mock of a trigger, in this case, mocking an S3 upload. So once you have line 30 edited and line 23 edited, let's go ahead and save that. Okay, that worked. And we're going to test it. We're just going to make sure that worked. And hopefully in our execution results, we will see the name of the S3 file, the name of the S3 bucket, and the key. So our execution results look good, but where did all of this stuff come from? So let's go back to our Lambda function, and I'm going to just talk about where all of this came from. So this is version 2 of our code, and a lot of it stayed the same. Our imports stay the same, our regions stay the same, our record lists, which we will get to, stay the same. We have our initial, the Boto3 that initializes the client. This reads through the test. We print it out, so that all stayed the same. Now, this code here, what this is doing is this is getting the object from the bucket, it's reading the CSV file, and it's going through each row in the CSV file. I'm not going to get too much into what every single part here means, but just know that it is reading through the CSV file. And what this for loop here is doing is it's saying for each row in the CSV reader, print out the movie ID, the movie title, and the year. So basically print out all the things in the CSV file. And then I have this print statement here just so we can make sure that it works. It's the movie ID, the movie, the title, and the year, which in the playground case is just a few things. Again, we have this exception over here just in case something goes wrong. Hopefully we won't see this. Hopefully we will only see this. These little \ns that just spaces everything out. I think it just looks nicer. And yeah, as we see in our execution results, everything that we printed came out. So that is what we wanted to see. We wanted to see our bucket and our key. We wanted to see the movie ID, movie title, and the year. That is all of the stuff that is in the CSV file. Maybe it would be helpful for me to open that up so you can take a look. Yeah, there's nothing in here, just test, title, and that's the year I was born. And yeah, just an empty one. So that worked. So that is cool. So that is a way that we can mock uploading as opposed to going to the S3 bucket and uploading it every single time. OK, so that is all set. We have everything set up, and the only thing that is left to do is to set up our DynamoDB table and get that all connected. And yeah, let's take it from there. So I'm going to click on services. I'm going to go to DynamoDB and open up DynamoDB in a new tab. Again, you can search for it up here. Or if you scroll down to database, it's down here. Again, open that up in a new tab. It'll get there when it wants to. While this loads up, I'll talk about DynamoDB. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a DynamoDB table. We're going to reconfigure our code. And this last version of the code is going to be the code that does it all. When a file is uploaded to our S3 bucket, the Lambda is going to get triggered. It's going to read through this CSV file, and it'll show up in our DynamoDB table. So this is loaded. I'm going to click on Create Table. Before we click on Create Table, promised you that I would remind you every time we created something new, make sure you are in the right region. If you go to a different region, you will not see the same stuff, especially all the things that were created that are our Lambda, for instance, is in London. So our DynamoDB, if we want to connect them, should also be in London as well. And so, yeah, you just want to make sure you are in EU West 2. Let's go ahead and create a table. We're going to create a table name using the naming convention that we've used all night. So playground -db- whatever type of panda you are. Our partition key is going to be movie ID. And our movie ID in this case is a number. Where is this coming from? If I open up the marvel.csv file, I just binge watched every single movie in this universe recently. So this is why this is on my mind. But as you can see, our first row here is our movie ID. This is movie. This is the title, and this is the year that the movie came out. Fun fact, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is coming out in next year. OK, so that's where that came from. So that's where our movie ID and our number comes from. We will add tags, because once again, tags are good practice. My name is Jillian. Please put your own name. And my purpose is playground. So let's go ahead. I'm going to click the Create button on the bottom. And just wait for that to load up. Great, so we have created our DynamoDB table. Up here on the tab that says items, that's what we're going to want to see later when we do upload our final CSV file. Under items, we're going to want to see everything that we saw in that CSV file. So that should end up here if everything goes correctly. So now let's finally use our final version of our code. So if we navigate back to GitHub, scroll down to version 3, click on the clipboard up here, and we'll talk about this code in a moment. So let's go ahead and click that. Navigate back to our tab, our Lambda tab. Navigate to lambda underscore function.py. I'm going to select that whole thing and replace it with version 3 of the code. Again, our region is in EU West 2. A lot of this code is all the same. This is what reads the CSV file. And now we've added a little bit more code here. And so this is going to be reading this reads the CSV file. What this does is it puts all of the items into our DynamoDB table. So as you can see, it goes through the movie ID, the movie, the title, the year, and it kind of it puts everything into tables there. I have this little print statement. Always use print statements to make sure your stuff is working. Now, what everyone needs to do here on line 30 is that this is my table name. So you have to put your table name. So it should be the same naming convention, playground, DB, whatever type of Panda you are. So just replace silly with the adjective that has been assigned to you. If you don't do that, your code will fail, as I learned the hard way. So please make sure that you edit that on line 30. Let's click deploy. Again, this just saves the code. Okay, so now we have everything set up from start to finish. We have our IAM roles, S3 bucket, DynamoDB. Everything's all connected. We have our roles, our permissions, everything. So now we are going to go through the entire process, or go through the steps of just uploading our uploading our CSV file to our S3 bucket. And hopefully, if everything goes right, we will see everything parsed to our DynamoDB table. So I'm going to go ahead and try to deploy once again. Disney did not sponsor this message. Should I reach out to them and try and get money from Disney? I might just. Oops, still have a network error. Let's try deploying that again. Hopefully third time's a charm. Oh, sweet. Changes deployed. Awesome. Possum. Okay, great. Let's do it. So let's navigate back to our S3. Navigate to your S3 bucket. I'm a silly panda. And great. As you can see, our S3 bucket is not empty. We do have our playgrounds dash test in there. But now we are going to upload our playground-marvel.csv. And again, this is the trigger. I'm doing this in slow motion because it's very exciting. So that is the trigger. The end result is not as exciting, but we're going to upload this. And as it uploads, Lambda's working in the background. Lambda's getting to work. Lambda's reading the file. Lambda's parsing it to DynamoDB. Lambda's doing its thing. We can always rely on Lambda. So we're just going to wait for that to load. Our upload is succeeded. So I'm going to go over back to our DynamoDB. Let's click that refresh button. And there you have it, friends. All of our items in our CSV file is in our DynamoDB table. So our code worked, our permissions were correct, and yeah, that is what we wanted to do, and we did it. So hooray, that is the end of this lab. Thank you for joining us for this DevOps Playground. I enjoyed this very much. And yeah, thank you all. Cool. Does anyone have any questions? Pop it into the chat. If I can't answer it, I have a team who will help me. The voices in my head, as I've spoken about before. Thank you. Thanks, Charlotte. Any questions? Okay. I guess there's no questions. Well, I guess if there are no questions, thank you everyone for joining. Have a good night. It's still light here in London. I'm very excited about. What was the second option? Voice in my head? Oh, yes, please. Oh, I imagine not. Sorry, I don't have a better answer for that. Is Lambda the only way of dealing with these kinds of tasks? Well, Lambda is going to be the thing that automates it. That is, yeah. Yeah, let's get a little more specific. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.